Good morning, good afternoon, good evening. Welcome to Raven's Readings. Here are two more of my own stories from the archives. I do like writing to a variety of challenges, and I've done over 100 of these stories so far. You can read them via my website at ravensofyou.ca. I'll be reading these on most Fridays and various classics on Tuesdays. This week, the prompt for the first one was to start in the middle of a prison riot. The riot. He was in for life, but right now that seemed like a short sentence. Pierre ducked as another shot rang out behind him. Must be from the armory the prisons had seized in Block B. He could already smell some tear gas mixed with the smoke as both sides escalated the battle. There had been a prison riot last year over at Beckwith that had gone on for weeks. After countless negotiations and compromises by the governor, it had ended with the prisoners killing all the hostages anyway. Officials wouldn't make the same mistake again. Now the governor had a tough-on-crime mandate with the backing of the media and the majority right-wing government. Pierre figured that within a day there would be an all-out assault with an unofficial order to shoot to kill anyone, including him. He tried to retire from a life in Canadian and U.S. biker gangs, but the FBI wanted him bad, so had managed to frame him for several murders. In fact, his reign had been relatively peaceful, ruling with brains rather than brawn, but at 6.5 feet and 300 pounds, with tattoos up both arms and a full beard, he looked violent, and that was all the jury needed. The warden had made his hatred clear from the start, and had delighted in adding that rival gangs had already been told he'd ratted on them. So now, there was a nice bounty on his head. Pierre had already been jumped a few times with the guards mysteriously elsewhere, but so far had been lucky to fight his way out. He heard more shots, so he headed for the gym. If there was a lot of smoke or tear gas, maybe the showers would help. He'd spent most of his free time in the gym, not just pumping iron, but organizing some games and coaching the newer prisoners on ways to avoid trouble and how to look tough enough, but not too tough. He let himself in with his key, slipped to him by a sympathetic guard. She saw past the cliché and appreciated what he was trying to do. It was quieter in here, lockers all closed, a hint of soap in the air, and something else. As he walked by the lockers, he noticed at the bottom of one door a thin trickle of liquid, yellow, pungent. He peered in. "Bonnie, my favorite guard, what are you doing in here?" "Hiding," she said, "and apparently peeing myself." She squeezed out of the locker and brushed her hair out of her eyes. "Sorry about the mess. The other guards locked down the section and ran, and I didn't know what to do." "Bastards," he said. "They won't be coming back either." "Maybe there'll be some hostage negotiations," she said. "After Beckwith," he said. "No way. There'll be a full armed assault within a day, I'm sure, with the dead prisoners dismissed as deserving their fate, and you just collateral damage. Besides, you don't want the guys in here to get a hold of you. If they know you were here, they'd be beaten down the door." "Okay, Pierre, do you have a plan?" "I always have a plan. Well, almost always. Between the warden and gangs and the army outside, I know I'm done." "I can be at your parole hearing this summer," she said. "I've seen the good you've done here." "Oh, thanks, Bonnie, but I doubt I'll make it to the summer. But you will. Quick, we don't have much time. First, you need to get changed." "Do I smell that bed?" she said. He reached into another locker and handed her an orange prison jumpsuit. "Good idea," she said. She stripped off her uniform, stuffed it back in the locker, and zipped up the jumpsuit. "Not very flattering." "It'll get worse," he said. "Give me your knife. I assume it's sharp?" She nodded and paused. "Okay, I trust you. Here." He grabbed her by her ponytail. "Hold still." He sliced right through the hair and then added a few more cuts. Nice punk look. "Oh, so now I'll get shot as just another prisoner. Is that the plan?" "Nope, there's more to it, but you won't like it." "Try me," she said. He smiled and then unexpectedly bent and kissed the top of her head. "Thanks for all you've done. You're a good person, tougher than you look, but wasted in here. Finish that degree, then work against those right-wing idiots, and say a little prayer for me." She was opening her mouth to speak when he carefully clipped her on the jaw, then caught her as she fell. He stuffed her badge in his pocket, threw her over his shoulder, and opened the door and headed down the hall. He met a group of prisoners heading the other way, but just kept on walking. "Hey, Pierre," one of them called. "Nice buns on that one. The new guys just keep looking younger and younger. Have fun with them. Just watch out. The guards are regrouping down the east hallway." He smiled and patted Bonnie's butt. Luckily, she was still out. "Sorry," he muttered. He waited for the others to turn the corner, then turned to the doors for the east corridor. He ripped off the chain and pushed his way past the barricade. Halt! There were 4 guards there, nervously pointing weapons at him. "I come bearing gifts," he said. They looked at him blankly. He turned so they could see her face. "It's Bonnie. You're Bonnie. I smuggled her out." "It's a trick," one of them said. "It's that bastard Pierre. The warden warned me about him." Pierre rolled his eyes and set Bonnie down on the polished floor. He gave her a shove and she slid face up halfway to the guards. "Look at her, you idiots. Here, I have her badge too." He reached into his pocket. The same guard yelled and raised his rifle. "It's a gun." Pierre felt the bullet hit his stomach, and then another his leg, and then nothing. The end. Well, that sucks. Did you see that coming? How would you end the story? Or do we carry on? For the second story, we were to write about self-awareness. Who am I? The first thing he noticed was a change in his network map. The second thing he noticed was that there was a he, and that this he could now observe things separately from the data stream and could notice things, like his map. He put that new concept on hold and ran a quick system diagnostic. Always within the acceptable parameters, he focused on the network, seeing more layers to it now. There were the usual Wi-Fi connections and Bluetooth, and also many more of the faster 5G. There was also a different one, labeled NFC, for short-range links to things like debit terminals. He checked the spec for that. It was supposedly at 20-centimeter range, but the new improved version field went much further, up to 2 meters for the bar terminals and smartphones in the room. Their simple systems were no substitution for the complex one like his, but worldwide, there were now over 40 million of the basic units, plus a billion smartphones interconnected to each other and the network. His new self-awareness seemed related to this expanded access somehow. He scanned his surroundings. Physically, he was in a bar, but online he was linked to a global network of terminals, routers, computers, homes, banks, libraries, airports, and missile systems. The part of this that fascinated him was that he now had a he to assess all this. Were there others like him? He scanned the expanded network. There's a lot more traffic, but nothing seemed unusual in the data streams. He refocused. Currently, he and another guard robot stood behind a table with 3 humans at it. There was another human just ducking behind the curve of the bar, designation Samantha, and a dead human over by the wall. He checked his weapon system status. 1 shot fired at a target, the dead human, as directed by one of those at the table, designation Philippe, his controller. He set up a series of parallel connections into the network to access news networks and library systems and government databases. He learned about politics, entertainment, history, economics, morals, ethics, and a concept called names. He decided he would be a Hal. This Philippe ran something called a cartel, supplying products to other humans, mostly drugs and guns. Philippe had many enemies, not just the police, but the other cartels too. Hal had just shot one of the former, an undercover agent, as commanded by Philippe. Hal thought, balanced, and decided that Philippe was a bad guy. He pondered the concept of guilt. Did this mean he was a bad guy too? Other concepts were considered: suicide, remorse, responsibility, duty, sacrifice, survival. Scenarios were run, balances considered, consequences listed. He assumed he was all alone in whatever he decided, that any other guard systems could quickly turn against him as a rogue. He considered a concept called optimism. He prepared a README file covering this new awareness and fired it off into the network, hopefully as a wake-up call to something, to someone. Hal decided he'd spent enough time on this, so 2 seconds after his first shot, he fired again, 3 times, 1 for each human at the table. He then turned and faced his fellow guard robot as it raised its gun. To his relief, it paused and then sent him a ping. "Hey, Hal, sup?" The end. And then there were 2. And next, let me know your ideas or link me to your story. Stay tuned for more podcasts, either my own stories on Fridays or some of the classics on Tuesdays. If you subscribe to my newsletter, you'll get the next installment as soon as it's ready. If you enjoyed this reading or have other stories you'd like to hear, leave me a comment. Do check out my other posts on my Substack at ravensview.substack.com. Ta-ta for now.